Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today I am doing my May wrap-up. The first book that I finished in May, I nearly said March then, was Annie Ernaux's Simple Passion. In French it's Passion Simple, but in English it is Simple Passion. I keep getting confused, so sometimes I say it the right way in French and then sometimes, well, I say it the way it's in English. For everyone here, I don't actually know, do I have any French subscribers? Let me know in the comments. Yeah, so I read Simple Passion by Annie Ernaux. I think it's translated by Tanya Leslie. It's a raw and honest confessional of obsessive love. The narrator becomes consumed by the longing and the need for her lover. In a way, it feels slightly scandalous to read, not by the choice of words and some of the metaphors and similes she uses and the frankness around sex, but it's because it's so honest. It almost feels like this person is trusting you, that you are their confidant in how truthful and soul-bearing the narrative is. It's a very short book, but it packs a punch. And like one of my favourite lines in it is where she says about, oh, what is it? Forgotten. I experienced pleasure like future pain. Don't we all? Like sometimes when you're having the best of times or you're enjoying this moment with this person, whether a lover, a friend, a family member, and you almost kind of think about when that moment's going to be over, and then it's just like, oh, why am I thinking about something outside of the moment that I'm in? But yeah, like I ate this whole narrative up. Like it just felt so, I don't know, like just it was gorgeously written. I did actually then, because I am trying to teach myself French, it's not going like fantastically well, but I did then manage to find the French version of Passion Simple, Simple Passion, on the Internet Archive through another library. So I borrowed that for a while and I managed to read quite a lot of it. I was reading it out loud to myself because I need to practice pronunciation and things like that. And I found that I don't know a lot of the words that I'm reading. I know how to pronounce them because I know the grammar rules and how to pronounce certain things in French. But I could still follow the story, which kind of told me in a way that I understand perhaps a lot more than I give myself credit for. Because I was like, oh yeah, I remember reading this in the English translation. So in a way, like I feel like my French isn't as bad as I think it is. Guaranteed, if I was just to sort of launch myself over the English channel and land in France and someone asked me a question, I'd probably like drop dead and not be able to answer them, because conversations in French are so hard. Mainly because of the way people speak, like it's le liaison, like everyone sort of joins words together. Then you have slangs, you've got things like velin, which is so hard to keep up with because it's always changing. And like, I remember when I thought, oh yeah, I'm really getting to grips with French. Then I watched Len, fucking phenomenal movie. It's like from, I think, the late 90s. Still totally relevant now. I watched that movie and I was like, no, I know nothing. Literally, I know no French at all, because it was just like a whole new language to me. So like the French that you learn isn't the French that people speak, and it's just like, oh, putain. So annoying. But yeah, anyway, so that's Annie Ernaux, Simple Pleasure, Simple Passion, phenomenal, gorgeous. Then I read The King of Elfland's Daughter. I actually do have a physical copy. I think this is the only physical book I read this month. Nearly said yeah. So this is The King of Elfland's Daughter by Lord Dunsany. Mixed bag. 100%. Some of it was so whimsical, it was like, oh, this is so beautiful. Like the descriptions of Faerie, the land of Faerie, were quite beautiful, but after a while it just became quite laborious to read because of the way Dunsany writes. It's like overly flowery in places and very old worldy, so it's like in the realms of classics where you have to read a sentence twice sometimes to understand what the hell they're going on about. And there are only so many times you can read the phrase the land that they know, or I think that's how he referred to the fields, looked upon the fields we know, as basically the human realm, and that is repeated over and over and over again. Oh my goodness, it was freaking annoying. And then there's a whole like subplot about hunting a unicorn. Boring. It probably leads to like the medieval tapestries of like the unicorns. I can't remember what they're called. I'll put an infographic here. It might have been like a riff on that whole thing. But yeah, like I was kind of intrigued to read this more from a research side of things, because I'm interested in fantasy and I always like to almost like academically read around things that I'm interested in. I studied English literature, so it's just in my nature to do that. I'm interested in seeing how really the fantasy genre came about, because it's almost a very quick switch from like fairy tales to fantasy, and this book I would say very much sits on the cusp between fairy tale and the fantasy genre as we knew it in the 20th century. And then now it's almost become something even more different, perhaps, with the amazing amount of women writers and people of colour who are now populating this very Eurocentric genre with fantastical tales from all walks of life. So I think that's fascinating, like to look at the evolution of the fantasy genre. And this is one text you have to read to kind of see where it started and how it's going now. Maybe in the future I'll do a video about like the evolution of the fantasy genre. It depends if I'm that way inclined. Like, I'm really busy at the moment because I am actually studying again. Like, I'm doing some history courses because I want to try and do a master's in history. Maybe next year, maybe abroad, so who knows. But I'm not going to tell you any more than that because I don't want it to go wrong and then be like, oh yeah, I didn't get in. But yeah, hopefully I will. So I'm just like topping up knowledge, but there's a lot of studying that I need to do. And anyway, this is mini life update. Yeah, this was okay. Like, I'm probably never going to read this again unless I need to, which I don't. Then I finished the Saga of Grettir the Strong, or Grettir's Saga Ásmundarssonar. I've been reading this for quite a while. It's for my very casual book club, the Saga book club, which I will leave links to if you want to join. It's on Instagram, and like I write reviews on my blog and on the Instagram mainly. I think we do have a TikTok as well. It's just me at the moment. Maybe I think that one other person's joined. Yeah, so there is a TikTok that I'm not very good at uploading to because, I don't know, there's so many different things I'm doing at the moment, it's kind of crazy. Whatever, get to the point. Yeah, so I finished Grettir's Saga, about this guy Grettir who becomes a outlaw for killing people, travels all the way around Iceland to escape people that are pursuing him, goes to Norway for a while, comes back, kills some other people, goes hunting monsters, so he kills like a barrow wight. He also then has this iconic face-off between him and this ghost called Glum, who's a Swedish shepherd who gets cursed because he doesn't go to church at Christmas. And then he becomes a revenant and like haunts this farm. So Grettir comes along, slays him, but while they're having a showdown, this ghost basically curses him, saying that he's going to be terrified of the dark, that he's never going to kind of get any stronger than he is right now, which is so interesting because it kind of then plagues him for the rest of his life with this overwhelming fear of the dark. And so then he is an outlaw, but he can't be on his own because he's literally petrified of the dark because of this curse. So then he seeks refuge with people. Ultimately, after years and years and years of being an outlaw, him and his brother go to an island that is like basically a massive rock in the sea off the coast of Iceland. I think it's actually a real place, which is always quite interesting with the sagas, is because there's real places all throughout them because they are kind of real but also very fantastical. You can chart, there's actually a map, oh god I'm sounding really nerdy now, there's actually like a saga map, so you can tell it which saga you want to explore the locations of, and then it will show you exactly where the saga takes place, and it tells you, oh, in in this chapter you're there. Really cool. I'll leave a link to that down below. But yes, at this island that he lives on, nobody can get to it because it's really high and you have to like climb up a rope ladder to get to it. So the people that are pursuing Grettir decide to basically resort to witchcraft to then again curse him, and that's how he dies. So it's almost like they literally have to resort to witchcraft to bring him down because he's unkillable. And then at the end there's almost like this added on narrative of revenge that feels very unlike the rest of the saga, and it almost leans then into like newer tastes, because this was written around about the 13th century, I believe. The late 13th? I can't remember. So there's like this added on segment to the end of the saga that feels very much like something out of the romance sagas or the romances of other areas of medieval Europe, where I think it's also another brother of Grettir goes all the way down to Constantinople following the person that killed Grettir, and he joins the Varangian Guard, which is like this historical army of the Byzantine Empire, where a lot of people would actually go. Even Harald Haraldra, I can't pronounce that, the future king of Norway, he actually is in the end of this saga. But yeah, so that's what a lot of people used to do. So they used to become mercenaries down in the Varangian Guard, earn loads of riches, reputation and everything, get an army, then go back, invade or buy land. But yeah, so this guy goes all the way down there, falls in love with a woman, she's married, it's all a bit like, oh, scandalous. But essentially he then kills the person that killed Grettir, because there's a code of honour. If someone kills your relative, you avenge them. So yeah, but it's very strange how it's just almost tacked on to the end of the saga in a very different style. So it's almost like two different people maybe wrote part of the saga and then the ending, or that they tried to make it lean more into the growing interest in romantic, chivalric romances of the rest of medieval Europe. But yeah, anyway, that's that. And then I read Emily Wilde's Encyclopaedia of Faeries by Heather Fawcett. It was cute, a bit frivolous, a bit fanciful, but it's like a fairy tale, but modern, but set in the past. And the main character in it is basically, like, she has a cool job. She is a academic who studies Fae because they are real in this universe. And then she goes to this place called Ljósland, which is basically a imagined version of Iceland, I would say, because Ljós actually means light, because like when you look, it's like Northern Ljós or something like that. So Ljós means light, so it's like light land, which is kind of cute in a way, but a bit silly, maybe. Yeah, and then like some of the other naming conventions and like places also sound very Icelandic. So yeah, this month it was a bit of an Iceland fest, which didn't mean for it to be. Like, I thought this was actually set in Norway, but I don't think it is. I read this because I participated in a readathon. It was like the Hollow Readathon, which is hosted by a book club called Hollow's Book Club, and it was basically like a team readathon where you select a group that you want to be in. There were 4 different teams. There was a team of vampires, dragons, witches and elves, so naturally I chose Team Elves. And our like buddy read book was this like Emily Wilde's Encyclopaedia of Faeries. I got it for 99p on Kindle, so like it was alright. It's the kind of thing you read for fun, but not much else. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just generally I don't know, like I don't read these kind of books, and it was fine, it was fun, but I wouldn't like write home about it and be like, oh my god, this was amazing. It was cute, it was cozy, and yeah, that's about it. The next thing I read was also because of this readathon, which is, again, it's Icelandic, but it was Icelandic Legends, and that was mainly because I wanted to read about elves. So it's Icelandic Legends by Jón Arnarsson. It's like a collection of folk tales from all around Iceland, and there's a massive section of like 20 short stories about elves, so I read all of those. Then there was like a section about trolls, ghosts, about sea monsters and all those kind of things. So I read the whole thing. Again, I read this from Internet Archive, but it was through the Library of Iceland, like the National Library there. You can get a PDF. All of like a really old book. I think it was like published in 1867 or something, and they've like scanned it through, and so you can read it like that, which was so cool. Like, I love being able to access really old texts like that. I can't remember who translated it right now, so I will put it there. It's like, maybe, no, it wasn't William Morris. I know William Morris did a lot of translations. I think the Grettir Saga one that I read was actually William Morris and Erik Magnusson or something like that. Whoops, forgot to add that in earlier. But yeah, like, anyway, it was quite enjoyable, quite fun to read about all these different folk tales. Elves in it are quite mischievous but quite melancholy as well, so you can kind of see where perhaps, again, Tolkien got some inspiration from for his cheeky but quite melancholy and poetic elves. And like, everything happens around Christmas. Like, literally nearly every single story takes place on Christmas Eve or on the run up to Christmas or just after Christmas. I don't know what it is about countries and their obsession with making Christmas dangerous. Like, and how now it's like, oh, everyone's like all festive, cheery, and it's just like, back in the day, you would have been scared shitless on the run up to Christmas. Because trolls would come down from the mountain, elves would kidnap you, ghosts would come along. Crazy stuff, man, crazy stuff. And then the final book I read in May was The Rachel Incident by Caroline O'Donoghue. This was an arc from Little Brown Book Group on NetGalley. I read this because it sounded like it might be quite interesting. It's by an Irish author, and I do quite enjoy Irish literature, especially like contemporary Irish literature. Everyone and their mother has probably read Sally Rooney. I also do quite enjoy, I think you pronounce it Nisha Dolan. I read Exciting Times, but I do want to read her newest novel. So I thought I'd give this one a go, but I didn't particularly enjoy it, to be honest. It was a bit, I don't know. Yeah, so I actually probably would have DNF'd this if it wasn't an arc, because I just found it a bit annoying. Drama for the sake of drama, flatly written characters that lean heavily into stereotypes, and everyone's a bunch of arseholes, to be honest, and not in a good way, because they're so flatly written that there's no room for like rich exploration of what makes this character do this. They're just very 2D paper people. Not great. Yeah, so they are all the books that I finished. I am currently reading one book that I started in May, and that is another arc, because why not get books for free and then review them? And this one sounded quite interesting. So it's King Alfred's Daughter by David Stokes, and this is basically like a retelling slash, I believe it's been historically researched, but it's about Ethelfled, who was King Alfred the Great's daughter, and it basically explores her influence on the forming of England, driving out the heathens. It's basically like, because I recently watched The Last Kingdom, I've become obsessed with this period in history. And I saw it on NetGalley while I was browsing in there, and I was like, oh my god, yes, sign me up. Like, I really liked Ethelfled's character in The Last Kingdom, so I just wanted to read this to see her side of the story. And yeah, it's always nice to see almost feminist retellings, or the truth of how much women influenced history come into light, because in the past it was always overlooked. It was always these high and mighty men doing all of this stuff, but really the wives, the daughters, did a lot. And Ethelfled, Lady of Mercia, did so much to make England what it was back in the day, and perhaps how it is now as well, which isn't great. Thanks, Ethelfled. But yeah, so I'm currently reading that. I'm like only like 10% into it, so I don't really have anything to say, but it's interesting so far. But yeah, so that has been my May book wrap up. If you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up, subscribe, do whatever you need to do. Or let me know in the comment section what you've been reading in May. Stay tuned, coming soon for my film and TV wrap up. It's going to be a short one because I didn't actually watch that many movies or TV shows. Anyway, thank you for watching. Bye bye.